Well, hello, wealthy women. I am actually so excited to introduce my next success story because her work is for every single woman on this planet. There is not one woman that she cannot help at some point in that woman's life. So, uh, I'm sure you're curious by now. So rather than me telling you all about it, let me pass the camera over to Lisa, and she will tell you all about her amazing work and why it matters and how it can help you or other women that you know that need some help in this area. So, Lisa, take it away.
Well, thanks, Tamara. Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it. Hi, I'm Lisa. I am the founder of Vivacious Heart Coaching. And you can hear from the title, Vivacious Heart, that it is about deep connection to yourself. And so the work that I do is really around helping women find themselves in a space where there's not a lot of story or example about what it means to be a woman post empty nest, menopausal, and perimenopausal. And it's really interesting because often when I say those words, perimenopause or menopause, people are like, ooh, I'm not sure I want to go into that space. But it is really essential because there is not a single system in your body that is not impacted by the decrease and fluctuations of estrogen and progesterone. And so the societal norm or concept of menopause is you get a few hot flashes, you get grouchy for a little while, and then you move on. Right? That's the story that we see, right? I can imagine the scenes from Golden Girls where they're fanning themselves, right? And there was no real language put to it.
No.
We just knew that they were having these moments where they needed to like fan.
Yes.
And the interesting thing now is I feel in many ways like it is the work of women of my generation, of our generation, to give story and language for what this phase of life can be. Because the general story is not the truth. It's not it, right? So when women come to me, generally the questions they're asking are, what is happening in my body? Is this just how it is now? Who am I? And what do I actually want? Those are the four main starting places for women when they come and seek me out. And the answer to the first two questions, so the physical ones, often when they go to medical practitioners, the answer they get is, well, it's just the way it is. It's just part of being a woman. This is the stage that you're at now. And that is not the right answer. However, because there has been so little research and funding towards women's health in this area, the majority of the healthcare profession thinks that that's the truth. But there are institutions and people who are on the leading edge of how you can treat your body so that you can move through menopause into this incredible space of liberation. So you do not have to just live with hot flashes. There are things that we can do to make that more comfortable as you're moving through. And then the four top things that any woman can do to support themselves sustainably through perimenopause and menopause are stress reduction, sleep, exercise, and nutrition, right? They're the four foundational elements for pretty much anything. And they can be really challenging when we have a lifetime of habits that get in the way of those foundational elements. So that's my job. My job is to work with a client to really focus on specifically what they want to work on. So, for example, right now I have a client who's really working on sleep. And when we work on sleep, it makes all the other things easier because when we're coming from a place of exhaustion, everything else is more challenging. So I work with that client to determine achievable goals. And then I connect with her once a week for a session and then daily because true sustainable change has to be embedded into your daily life. So that's how we work together. And then once we sort of get that physical element coming together, the questions around who am I and what do I actually want become a lot clearer, because when we're either not living in our bodies or in a space that's really foggy, it's really hard to answer those questions. And so my purpose is really shifting the focus from menopause being this like the end sort of a woman's life to no way, this is the beginning of what can be the most powerful and exciting phase of your life. And I know this to be true. And I know that this is important work because I am doing the same thing. I am in this space too. And that's why I started. My children are at the phase where they are sort of one foot in the nest and one foot out. And I'm seeing what that life is going to be like. I'm experiencing perimenopause and menopause. So I am right there with you. And I'm very, very aware because I am in it as to what it's like to be going through this phase.
Wow. I mean, this is really wonderful that you are leading this in such a new direction and with new wording and expectations, because you are so right. We just heard that, kind of like, oh, that's the end, put her out to pasture, whatever the things that you hear.
Yeah.
Typically, those are from the men. This is not even the women that were talking about this and saying that, just we're hearing this and just saying, oh, okay, I guess that is how it is. And I love that you are switching this whole concept up to a positive about liberation, empowerment. And it's really just, again, it all comes down to the focus. How do you focus? How do you refocus on that subject matter? And, I love what you're saying about the four physical elements that are so important. And, you think a lot of the times we should be able to do this, but we don't all the time. We're not consistent. We try our best, and especially at, like you're saying, this challenging time when these four factors are even more important than ever because you're now getting the whole shift with the hormones and everything. So fantastic. And I was just curious too, do you find in your work that it is at this stage of life that women are starting to reassess the next chapter, like, who am I, where am I going, what do I want? Is this kind of like a theme that happens, and why do you think it's happening in this moment? Is it the hormones, is it the reflection, is it the empty nest syndrome? All of the things may be combined, but you definitely see a pattern here then with this.
Oh, absolutely. I would say this is the time in a woman's life where pretty much anything is on the table. Like that's what I notice when clients come to me. It could be the partnership that they've been in for a really long time, especially when kids leave the house and all of your interactions have become transactional. So, like when you think about when your kids are growing up and you're young, often everything with your partner becomes strategic, right? Like who's
Mhm.
driving who, what's for dinner, all of those task type things. And you lose the connection with them, and a lot of times people will come to me and say, I don't even know who this person is anymore, and I don't know how to talk to them. Right. So relationships can be really challenging because everything around what they've always held at the
No.
center of their relationship is now changing. So I describe this time as being really destabilizing because every role that you've used to define yourself, which actually is external to the truth of who we are. So things like, for me, I was a teacher, I was an educator for 20 years. That's how I would define myself. Partner, mother, friend, right? Like all of the ways we define ourselves suddenly start to fall away because our parenting role, yes, I will always be mother to my children and I love them very much, but the day-to-day practicality of how I engage with them in their lives is very different, right? The continuous care element certainly is no longer part of the equation. So that part of my role is shifting. It's a time, so because those things are shifting, we suddenly find ourselves with time that we've never had before. And when we have a little time and space opens up, questions start bubbling to the top, right? Am I really happy? Am I doing what I really want to do? Am I in relationships that feed me and make me feel good and that are reciprocal and respectful? What does my body feel like? Do I feel comfortable in my body? Or am I always trying to escape it? And those questions start coming to the surface at a time where for the first time ever in many women's lives, it's outside of the gaze of expectation of anyone else. So when I think specifically about myself, about choices I made, about what university I went to, what career I chose, yes, they were my choices. However, they were
Influence.
highly influenced by the people who were in my life, by my
Wow.
family, by my fiance, by all
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
expectations of other people. And now, for the first time, I get to step into my life and make choices that are outside of the expectation of anybody else. The only person I'm thinking about now is me. And that is a pattern that I see that allows for this kind of transformation.
Well, it's interesting because I love that you have, and you can almost compare it to like when someone say had worked at the same job for 60 years and then retires, and all of a sudden the things that filled that person's life, now what? Who am I? What do I do now? So it's a sort of retirement stage of the
Yep.
body, mental, physical, and so forth. But I imagine that it can be very unnerving to some, where maybe this is a moment where some sadness and maybe depression comes because there's confusion and not knowing where it belongs. And I can see the benefit of having you coach someone to have a positive focus on the change, to not fear it, to embrace it, to
Mhm.
communicate with them and them with themselves, to navigate it. Because depending on a person's outlook, it can either be a powerful, exciting time, and maybe for some, it can be like just a different fact. And we don't want, of course, that to happen to someone to kind of spiral into not being comfortable with these changes. So, can you share a little bit like a specific, like one of your coaching, like how would you help women, and also where can they find you? Like what is your website? Maybe spell it out just if somebody doesn't have uh, a pen and pen handy at the moment.
Yes. So that's a great question. And just before I answer it, one thing I do want to say is that we also deal with the hard emotions and acknowledge them and normalize that, right? Because the other pressure that often is pushing on us is like, oh, this is such an exciting time in your life. You should be so grateful for where you're at. And I think about when my son was graduating from high school and all the messages were like, oh, this is so exciting. And it was making me angry,
Yeah,
actually,
yeah.
because yes, it is a really exciting time. That is true. It's super exciting for my son, and it is deeply painful for me because I am going to miss him. And so acknowledging that both things are true and okay. It's okay to feel all the things that you're feeling in this moment. And we can work through the grief of it and process that and acknowledge it so that we can authentically move into a more empowered place. So when I work with clients, the place I start is with your menopause manifesto. So
Hmm.
I work through a process of helping you figure out really clearly, like, what are my values? What are my values around exercise? What are my values around nutrition? We work through a whole series of questions, and then that gets us clear and creates a statement. So your menopause manifesto statement.
I
So that
love
when you, yeah, it's
it's like
really,
taking ownership, like
yeah,
you know like like you're the executive of your body and your mind and your heart and your life. It's like you just bossed up for yourself in a powerful
exactly.
way. Love this.
Yeah.
Really.
And it also gives you the foundation for when you're making decisions. Does it align with my menopause manifesto? Yes or no? And if it doesn't, then that's not something we do. And if it does,
um,
then fabulous. So it gives this really firm foundation for moving forward, which is really exciting.
Yeah, the
And
clarity that comes from that, I can see that is such a benefit right there. You don't have to like
yes,
overthink anything. It either fits in the box or it doesn't fit, so to speak. So, yeah.
yeah. And then that also helps us make goals, right? So when you know exactly what it is that matters to you and what you want, then from there we set a goal around whatever it might be. So I've used sleep as an example. It might be around even just figuring out like what do I actually like? Because a lot of the time I ask people that question, they're like, I don't even know anymore.
Yeah.
So we start setting that goal of okay, what is something that you enjoy for yourself? Let's figure that out, and then let's start developing some ritual in your life so that you embed that into your everyday. So that's just one example, and you can find me at leaninfindhome.com. That is my website name, leaninfindhome.com.
Wow. I truly love the whole idea. And then what you were saying about the accountability, like you even do daily accountability. That is like you are a coach that is just showing up so beautifully for her clients. And because you are correct, it's that whole, inconsistency that, we have on our own, typically more common than not. We set, our physical goals and we're good for a little while and then we get off track and then we get in a cycle and then we're like, okay, we go back to it. And this is because it's hard, it's not always easy to do it on our own and hold ourselves accountable. But when you have that coach, especially at this time of transition, that you're showing up and, keeping them on check. I love this. I mean, it's really a full package. It's fantastic. This is, you can just see how this is going to create a beautiful, healthy life and lifestyle. So fantastic. Okay. So women, go check her out. If you're a woman, go check her out. And since I only talk to women, that means all of you need to go check her out. Okay. So we are going to get into a round of success questions now to dive in a little bit deeper about you and how you proceed through the stages of being a business owner, basically, and life, of course. So here we go. Let's see. I want to ask you, the first question is, um, what is the main thing that you can tell to women that want to start their own business about why they should do it as far as empowering themselves would go?
That's a great question. And the answer is multifaceted, but I would say the number one thing is you get to be in charge of yourself. And for me, coming out of the world of education, I didn't get to decide anything. I didn't even get to decide when I went to the bathroom.
Yeah.
So having this sort of power over what my day looks like, what I choose to engage in, who I work with, it has allowed me to step into my own power in a way that I have never experienced in my life. So everything, and when I look at what I've created, I know that it is a true representation of me because I made it. I made everything. And so it's this beautiful,
Love that.
beautiful space of creation, of empowerment, and of really deep connection with what actually matters to me and what I want to see represented in the world.
I love that. It's like you're correct. It's sort of like it's your own crayon box and it's your own paper and no one else is coloring or designing it like you. It's just that is just one of the best freedoms and beauties of owning your own business. And it's your blank canvas and put on it what makes you happy and can be helpful to others, right? Okay, so speaking about empowering, because that's basically what my whole business is about, empowering women. The whole book is going to be about, success stories, success habits, empowerment, inspiration. So just curious for your like can be like a morning routine, but what empowering routines do you specifically do on a daily basis that without it you would just feel a little off and your day maybe wouldn't be as smooth and fabulous when you miss these things.
Yeah, that question is going to give you a little like peek behind what I'm wearing today. So I actually have a very specific morning routine where I get up early, often before anybody else in my house is moving around. So I get some quiet. I
Mhm.
meditate. I check in. I use a pendulum to really do some checking in with myself around what the day should look like. And then I do a workout. So I was saying to Tamara, like, yes, this dress I actually just pulled down over top of my workout gear, and I'm actually sitting here sweating.
Love.
but but again, that's the beauty of this world, right? I get to choose when and how I spend my time, and doing that workout is essential to start my day. So that gets done, and then I have a little bit of time for breakfast so I can get my nervous system settled and into a place that's good for the rest of the day. And then I approach my tasks with a sense of real groundedness and feeling good in my body, also, which is important because when you're having to make decisions, if you're not really grounded in your body, you lose access to those decision making tools, which are really, really important. So that's really important to me. And then at some point during the day, I also make sure I get outside, get some fresh air, and then get back to it.
I love this. I think probably some of the women will be a little bit more curious about a little bit more specifics because you are definitely on this path of putting health and that physical focus top priority. So for meditation, about how many minutes a day do you do that? Do you listen to a guided meditation? Do you just what are you just quiet on your own, or like what's your meditation process?
It's a combination of both of those things. So some days I'll pop on my headphones and do a guided meditation. I often will use oracle cards. They're a really great way to connect with energy of that day and to set some intentions. And sometimes I will just sit quietly because when we're constantly bombarding ourselves with external stimuli,
Yeah,
it doesn't give our nervous system that chance to really settle because it's taking in information. So it is a number of different practices depending on how I feel and what I need on that day.
I like that. Yeah, it's good to mix it up, and you have to listen to yourself because you will always communicate what you need. If you just listen. So, the other question then, as far as the exercise, like what type of exercise and for how long are you doing this in the morning?
Yeah. So I do a combination of cardio and lifting, as
Okay.
well as I've started working in a little bit more yoga during the week as well, because aging bodies take a little bit longer to recover. But what's unknown in many cases is that weightlifting is the one of the number one things you can do for your overall health. It's not just about how you look or building muscle. What happens when you are lifting weights actually impacts I'm using the nervous system, it impacts your immune system. This may sound counterintuitive, but if you have osteopenia or osteoporosis, starting with gentle lifting can actually start to reverse those processes. So for my clients, I always recommend, I know it might seem intimidating or hard, but weightlifting is one of the best things you can do for yourself. And it's super empowering. Like when I have a 50-pound dumbbell in my hand, I feel like I can
Yeah.
do anything. If I can lift this, I can do anything.
I love
Yes.
that. And it's also true, if I remember, muscle continues to burn more calories. So when you have a little, and you don't have to get big and bulky women, you can just have a very toned body, but um, muscle burns more calories and it helps your metabolism for a longer period of time than say a typical, hour on the treadmill or something would take. And what about the cardio? What is the cardio aspect that you're doing?
So some days it's a mix of lift and then there'll be a hit section at the end. I used to be a runner, so I actually really love cardio. So sometimes I'll do a half hour of just straight cardio. I use at-home workouts, so I don't even really have to think about it. I can just put it on and go. I am trained, however, to create workout routines for people. So that's
Yeah.
possible, but I like to just have someone tell me what to do in the morning so I
Yeah.
don't have to think about it. And it's I between 30 to 45 minutes every morning.
And then the weightlifting on top of that, or 30
No,
minutes
that's
total.
like the full, yeah, 30 to
Okay,
45 minutes.
that's
Sometimes I
great.
alternate lifting and
Yeah.
cardio, sometimes it's all together. And then Wednesday and Sunday are my yoga days to give my body
Okay.
a little bit more time to recover.
Well, I'm kind of glad. I normally don't go in this deep with exercise, but I know that you really have a pulse on the physical aspect of a woman and her journey at this stage. And that is why I really thought to ask a little bit deeper questions about your meditation, and this makes sense. And I absolutely love your answers, because I think weightlifting is definitely not one of the things that are really focused on enough for women. And it is probably one of, like you said, the best things that you can do in an overall experience. And so thank you for sharing that with me and everybody. I
Thanks
know
for
I'll have to,
asking.
I have a bunch of barbells that I haven't used in a while. I have some, dust on them, but I think I'm ready to dust them off a little. I'm always into yoga and walking, but then there are certain things you need to do, a little more cardio, a little more
Mhm.
weightlifting. So, okay. So a lot of women, when they're first starting their business, they get overwhelmed. Everybody's saying, oh, you need to be on TikTok, YouTube,
Mhm.
Instagram, Facebook. You need Facebook ads. You need to do all the things. And it's overwhelming. And I know that a lot of women want to do it all, try to do it all, get so overwhelmed, and it starts to feel uncomfortable. And so they do get confused in the beginning. How do I start marketing my business? I know my business, I have my website up. What would you suggest, or what was your first way of kind of getting the word out there that you have a business, that you can help people? Because this is definitely one that women struggle with in the very beginning. They don't know what to do. There's so many things to do.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I would say the number one most important thing is to work with someone who's done it before. Don't try to do it alone, right? Because that's where the overwhelm comes in, is when you feel like you have to do everything by yourself and you can't ask anyone for help. And that's where you can go down the wrong path very
Yeah.
easily, right? Because there's a lot of people out there who are building businesses that may or may not be supportive of entrepreneurs. So having somebody who's gone before is really, really helpful. So that's what I did. I had my own coach when I started, and I'm part of a community of female entrepreneurs in my area who are just brilliant and are so grounded in collaboration and not competition. So number one
I
is
love
that.
this. Love
And
that.
yeah, and honestly, it's one of the first times I've really experienced that true collaboration where everybody just wants everybody else to be successful, and it's such a beautiful thing to be part of. And then pick one thing to start. And once you get comfortable, so I had already been using a number of different social media platforms. So I felt comfortable in a lot of spaces, but Facebook was probably the easiest one for me to start with because it was already part of my everyday. So shifting to a business lens, however, is challenging. And I can't remember who it was. I was doing some training where they said it's okay if friends and family stop engaging if you are posting things about your business because it's no longer for them. And letting yourself have that shift of it's okay. This is my intention and purpose now. And yes, some people will fall away or fall off in terms of interaction in those digital forms, but it's because I am shifting to use it for a different purpose now. So just
Yes.
even knowing that that's possible, that might happen also is helpful.
And giving yourself permission. I love that you brought that up. That's a huge struggle for so many, because we started, when you think about the Facebook, this is our family and friends, and it started that way, and it's what it has been for us and others, and we're in that comfort. And you see the transition that happens when someone is transitioning in their business focus. And I know a lot of people are still on the fence about the whole idea, how do I mix it and it still work? And so, yeah, I love that you just said that you have to give yourself permission and allow that some people will fall off if that's the focus. So
Mhm.
the next question I had is when um, you know, all along your business, can you recall one of the biggest challenges that you had and how did you overcome it?
I would say, I mean, the biggest challenge, and I think most people would say the same, is being heard, right? There are so many people who are in the world doing really great things. It's how do you get yourself heard and be distinctive from anyone else out there? And the way I did that was increasing some of my qualifications. So that's when I brought in I took a menopause coaching course, and that was really helpful in solidifying knowledge that I already had and helping me to put it in a way that draws other people in. So that was definitely one of the ways that I overcame that, because it's a very specific lens and there's a
Mhm.
specific audience, and so it makes creating messaging easier when you
Yeah.
have something that is as a really clear focus.
I love that because messaging is so important. How you tell that story, how you connect, and so someone else can relate to what you're saying, and the authenticity that comes in, and of course the expertise and experience, and all those things. And helping yourself narrow it down. That is some of the challenge. What is my voice for this business? What is the leading thing that I really want to share? And so, yeah, and it takes practice, I imagine. You don't just get it right out of the gate. It comes with focus and practice, seeing what appeals to other people, what feels correct for your own self. So it's also part of the fabulousness of owning a business is that journey, right? You get to discover yourself so much every single day. I always say owning your own business and traveling to me are two of the best ways of getting educated about who you are as a human and how you show up in the world. So
A
yeah.
100%. I
Yeah,
completely agree.
yeah. That's why you might see in my programs I'm always offering some travel because I want people to travel. I've done a lot of travel, especially even solo travel, and there's something that happens with the confidence level knowing that you can take good care of yourself all by yourself and you're alone in the world and you're making it work. And so sometimes people don't get those opportunities to travel as much. And so I'm such an avid fan of travel that food and travel, I always try and work it into my business somehow because, why not? It's joyful things. And it
Absolutely.
really helps you, build your business better because they coincide. And this actually brings me to my
Absolutely.
next question. We all have fear and doubt. It comes up, whether it's being visible online or anything. So, do you have a go-to practice when you are encountering your own fear? Like when you just have that hesitation, anxiety, what's your method for handling that and dealing with that?
Well, that's a juicy question. And I mean, the truth is
Mhm.
multifaceted again, because absolutely, like there is doubt when you're stepping out of, especially in my context, I stepped out of something that was very safe,
Me too.
right? And into a world that is full of unknowns. And so
Yeah.
self-doubt and fear have been huge elements for me to work through. And I continue to. And every time you make a change, something else comes up to the surface, right? So it's not a destination where it's like, oh, I have solved doubt.
Yeah.
I've solved self-doubt
Woohoo!
and
I'm
fear.
finished.
Amazing. Uh, if only I could. But going back to that community, so when I am starting to feel that way, knowing that I can reach out to other people who are going through the same thing and talking out what I'm experiencing is a really big part of that. I will say my exercise routine also is a big part of that, because endorphin release, which is what happens when your heart starts to pound and you're using your muscles, it's the physical way that your body actually works through anxiety and fear. So that is an element of it. And then just having some good resources to go to where I can pull out a meditation around that, where I can pull out a mantra about that, so that I can start to retrain the neural pathways to
Mhm.
know that actually I'm okay. I'm safe. Everything is all right. And then the other element of that is allowing yourself to be present in the moment. Like when I find myself, when my motor starts really revving, you know, that feeling when your heart starts to pound and you're starting to head into panic, I just look outside and sit like the sky is blue. The trees are beautiful, and just really noticing the present moment so
Right.
that I can start to breathe again.
Great advice. Really. I love the one with the panic because I think that at some point in everyone's life, you kind of have a panic attack and it is scary. And
Mhm.
just like you said, focus on a little thing and just pull it back and slow it down and calm it down and stop thinking and spiraling. Great advice on that. The other thing that I can attest to is I had this past summer had to show up about I had so much fear and I had to really show up for something for myself. And it was one of the most challenging moments. And the interesting thing is I decided to write a mantra and it was all future focused. I am so thankful that this turned out wonderfully, that I had the best people around me, and I read it over and over again. And it was amazing because what normally would, because I've had an experience spinning out in fear and I didn't know how to handle it. And this time I needed it to be different and I wanted it to be different. And I can tell you that just having these words that I wrote to myself that were thankful and future focused about all goodness and success and getting my mind to be there in that future, it made all the difference. And I was calm as a cucumber over something that it was just a scary thing. And so the interesting thing is that I was like, I didn't know I had that in me. Like, really? Like, I was so proud and also shocked that I was able to be as cool as a cucumber, and it had everything to do with that focusing and the mantra that I wrote for myself. So I personally love that you said that, and I can highly recommend it. And I will always go to that if there's ever anything, good, even for the good things, for your future business goals or, whatever you want to achieve. So thank you for that because I think most of us women sometimes we get in our heads a little and we're emotional and we're sensitive and we're hard on ourselves and we worry and all of the things and unless you can kind of pull this out and you know have a strategy for it like you just suggested, you know strategy is better than spinning out. So that's all I can say. So I love that. I love that we're talking a lot about physical health, like weightlifting, meditation, the idea of if you're feeling overwhelmed, focus on one thing. Even the way of you said, in the beginning, marketing your business, focus on one thing. The idea here is avoid the overwhelm that we can all get ourselves tripped up in because that's never going to serve us. And we need to pay attention and lead ourselves, forward. And then, like you said, surround yourself with the right people that can help you get there. So I really love this. This is going to be so helpful to so many because, we all have women friends and we hear the stories and we know the things, and this is going to resonate on many levels. So, okay, let's see. Now we're going into the mindset stuff, which is still a continuation. So, what we're talking about. So, do you agree that mindset is more important than systems and strategies? Now, this is interesting because you're kind of a combination of the two here. So, how would you suggest on this question?
Yeah, so I was thinking about that when you were talking about the one thing. And when I started with my own coach, she was really getting me to work through mindset. And coming out of a very academic world, I was like, what? Come on, really? Mindset? Okay. Like, this is what's supposed to make the difference. And it is. It actually is the thing that makes a difference. And I have my own podcast, and I had one guest who was on it who talked about the science of it, which was really helpful for me. Again, with a very academic background, I need to understand the whys. And
Mhm.
she talked about, so when an acorn falls from a tree and it goes into the soil, it vibrates at a frequency that attracts to it the nutrients and the water that it needs to grow into a tree.
Amazing.
Right. Okay. So when we understand that, and that as humans, we are frequency, right? We are electrical beings that have frequency. And so if we have a mindset that is vibrating, that is causing us to vibrate in a way that is creating a negative space, then that's what we attract to ourselves. So I actually do think that mindset is the foundation, right?
Mm.
If you have a mindset practice, so going back to what we were talking about before, because nobody is ever in like a perfect space all the time. That's just not the reality of living in a human suit. So having a foundation of a practice that you can go back to. So what, like I said, one of the things I use now is the image of that acorn, and what is it, what is its frequency that's bringing to it the nutrients that it needs to live and survive, and how can I do that too? Then that becomes the foundation for the systems and the structures that you put in place.
Fantastic. I love this. I am so thankful to have such an amazing interview with you today. So helpful with so many key points that people can start applying into their lives immediately. And of course, you have so much expertise and you can help in so many ways. So before we sign off, can you please just share um, your website? But wait, I have one more question for you before we sign off. What would be your number one tip for a woman that is just deciding, should I start a business? Like, what would be your number one tip for her?
Get connected with other people.
There you
It's
go.
it's really as simple as that. Because when you are starting there are so many things you don't know that you don't know,
Yeah,
right?
yes, that's
And
true.
that was my biggest learning for sure. Like I kind of, and you also have to hold a little bit. I heard I think maybe it was Dax Shepard talking about this, like, to be really successful you kind of have to be a little bit delusional. Like
Yeah.
you have to let go of all of the noise and all of the messages coming at you that, like, no, you need to stay in systems and that's where it's
Mm,
safe, and anything outside of that is really dangerous. And so you kind of have to be a little bit delusional and say, no, I can do this. I'm
love it.
going to, and I'm going to do this.
I'm
So
going to.
yeah,
Yeah,
so trusting, like doing that check, doing that heart check, and trusting in your own inner voice, and then find people who will support you and work with you through the process.
love it. Lisa, fantastic. I mean, really a lot of gold in this interview. So thank you so much for sharing. And what, again, is the website that people can find out all about your work?
Right. Leaninfindhome.com.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being here. And all the women that hear this, they will definitely be moved, encouraged, inspired, rethink how they thought it was, and have a whole new perspective on how they're going to look at it going forward, the transitions in their lives as women. And so I just want to say thank you so much. And I hope you all enjoyed this amazing interview. This is just, not only for yourself, share it with your sisters, your mothers, your grandmothers, your girlfriends, your daughters. Just get this interview out there because it's so important that we women come together and, you know, re-speak things, see things and re-speak things that fit us, not going along with the way we were told it was. Let's question things. Let's have our own minds for them, our own answers, and let's connect together and move forward with this. And this is just another area that is important that we get empowered in our lives and show up the best we can for ourselves as well as our women that we are sharing the world with and all others. So thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to bringing another success story to you soon. And I wish you all of the best with your business and your life goals, especially as now, you know, this season we're going into beautiful changes and transitions. So thank you again. And I will see you soon, and take care for now. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, pleasure.